Hello, I'm Wallace Hartsfield, and let me say good morning to you. I serve as the under shepherd here at the Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Church. I apologize for my not being able to be here, but I had already committed myself to be in Arizona to speak to a state conference there. So please forgive me, and again, I say welcome. I've been asked just to share some things with you in terms of my experience. I have witnessed racism in many and varied ways. When I was 8 years old, I I witnessed. My grandmother didn't want me to witness it. My great grandmother didn't want me to witness it. She tried to pull me out of the yard. I was out there playing and pull me in the house. But I, smart aleck, I got in the house and then I pulled the shades back and all like that. And there, coming down the street, was a pickup truck. Let's see, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, about 15 Caucasian males in this truck. Dragging behind this truck was the body of an African-American black man that had been hanged, used for target practice. And they were dragging the body. And the reason for my understanding of what that man was shot and thing for, it wasn't about raping a white woman. It was because he asked the man who owned the plantation in which he worked if he would stop. His wife worked in the man's home, and he asked if he would stop, bothering with his wife. That's why he was killed. The very audacity that he would ask that man to stop, to leave his wife alone. This is what happened to him. I was 8 years old. So no one has to tell me the evils of that day. When my grandfather and I walked down the street and we went to town, if we saw white folk coming down the street, we had to get off the sidewalk, let them pass by. And sometimes they would even spit down on the floor behind you. I ain't talking about what I heard, I saw this. And my grandfather was never called Mr. by a Caucasian in all of his life. He was either called boy or by his first name. His first name was Thomas. They called him Tom. Boy, Tom, or uncle. That was what he was referred to. In this very town, when I came to Kansas City in 1962, my wife couldn't try on a dress downtown. She had to buy it based on the size and bring it home. She couldn't try it on. I could not try on a suit. I couldn't put on a hat. I couldn't put on a pair of shoes. I had to buy it sight, because if I tried it on, they couldn't sell it to a Caucasian. That was in this town in 1962. Where was the suburban church? What did it say about this? I'm not suggesting that there were not whites and et cetera, that marched with King. I'm not suggesting that at all. I suppose some of my concern has been in terms of the urban church, who've come up with some intellectual rationale uh, after having listened and studied certain psychologists and all the various kinds of things. Certainly, we pulled together something of some program, and then you come to the urban community and say, "We've developed this for you, and we want to cooperate with you in bringing this to bear." Well, you pulled this together, but you didn't ask me about it. You didn't involve me really in the outset about this. And yet, if I'm somewhat leery of it, then I'm accused of not wanting to cooperate. Um, um, it's one thing to bring something to me, and another is to ask me to come. Let us find a way together, hopefully, that we can try to combat these things. And I think there's a vast difference in that. There's a vast difference in that. Here there have been some advancement in many ways, but I still have great concern that the suburban congregation, the suburban church, uh, has in some ways not done those things that it could have done. I don't know the reason why, and I'm certainly not here to judge or anything like that. I'm only saying what I have witnessed in my years of being here. Uh, to have a conference, to have a gigantic prayer meeting is good. I think it's an excellent thing. But my concern is what happens after the prayer meeting. Uh, to say a number of things uh, when we come together as leaders, to say a number of things is good. But what happens after the conferences? For example, I raised the question, what will happen positively now after this beyond talk? Will beyond talk become a word, just a word, beyond talk? I suppose my understanding of beyond talk is into action. What will the action be? What forms will the action take? How will we go about it? Uh, what is the cost for that kind of thing? I, um, I have always tried to preach from the Philippians scriptures. I've been in love with Paul's epistle to the Philippian Christians. And one that has always intrigued and amazed me is the kenosis passage in the second chapter of Philippians, and where something of a literal interpretation is, let this attitude be yours, which was the attitude of Christ. And that attitude was that he was one who laid aside the privileges of being God. And that amazes me, that he thought it not robbery to be equal. In other words, no one put a gun on him, held him up, and made him do what he did. But he willingly laid aside the privileges and took on the form of a servant. And becoming a servant led him to a cross, and that cross to death. But it seems that God has a way of rewarding those who take those paths, no matter how painful they are. those who have the audacity to lay aside privileges and do what is right. And I'm wondering, can we go beyond what is religiously correct to that which is morally right? And that always leads to a cross. But then I noted that at the close of that passage, it says, but God has highly exalted him, given him a name above every name. And I just somehow feel that when you make those choices, no matter how painful they are, the cross looms in the distance, and that's what becomes your plight. But I also believe that because of that, God will exalt you. He will exalt right. So I'm looking forward and hoping and praying that this conference, that those who are here, who are willing to lay aside the privileges, and let me put it this way, those who are able to lay aside the privileges of being an urban church, those who are laying aside the privileges of being a suburban church, even those who can lay aside the privileges of being a black leader, or those who can lay aside the privileges of being white. Can we do that and take on the form of a servant? And so I suppose those are the words that I would have to say, and I hope I haven't been preaching. It's always a tendency when that's many people, even though I can't see you, it's a tendency to want to preach to you, okay? Thank you.